I'm walking out of work maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks, and like, listen, however you want to present yourself, cool with me. Whatever it is, do your thing. If you want to hit the mat counter a little too hard, that's fine. But when they find these costume lashes, right? So it's Wednesday, sweetheart. Like, you know what I mean? She got it looked like two greeting cards, and she just looked like
just his hand. Come
on,
both
lady.
hands waving.
You know what I mean? You walking your kids to the bus stop, baby. Where are you going with those things on your face? Can that be comfortable?
No, it could not.
Yeah, I was gonna say it feels like it'd be something that'd be distracting all day, just reminding you that you got something on your face.
I feel like there's already so much about me that is very cartoonish, right? So anytime I have eyelashes on that are like over the top, I'm like, this is too much. We gotta dial it back somewhere we have to be a person. So
let me ask you this question, and I know I'm hoping you've never been asked this. So like wearing lashes, I've never asked this of anybody, but is it like it be like ladies be walking around, it look like they got tears in their eyes, like, baby, you high or what? Nah, I'm just the lash. Is that really a uncomfortable thing?
So, I mean, there are different kinds. Like, some of them are heavier. Like you're saying, these like costume lashes, they're going to have a little more weight to them. Sometimes like you get stuck in the corners. So you feel like the edges of your eyes are kind of like sticking together. That's a pain. But usually the moment I'm done with them, I rip them off. So like I'll wear them in a match for like, wrestling matches. I got used to wearing them just because they help with like making me look more expressive. And then the moment the match is done,
I like that. That sounds painful. I'm sorry. It was an interesting question. We were there.
Not necessarily painful, but definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was gonna say I figured we were gonna go a couple of places with Willow tonight. I didn't think we were gonna hit the costume lash talk, but
I know right off the bat, right?
No, I love it. No, I imagine you might not have hit too many podcasts where you were talking to two grown ass men about some costume. Look at
it's a first for me, yeah.
No, let's get a little serious. We're here. Welcome back to the Black Rasslin Podcast, special edition of the Black Rasslin Podcast. Shouts out to everybody at Patreon, patreon.com/Black Rasslin. Over there, that's the homie IlFam79. My name is Cal. It's not about us at all. As you can see, we have an extremely special guest with us tonight. I imagine a lot of people, I don't know what your social media numbers have been doing since you've been appearing actually on like our televisions, over the last month or so. But we've been tracking what Willow's been doing for a minute. I've actually it's been fun. I've been waiting for Willow to get off of, no disrespect, but I'm waiting for her to get off of Dark and make it, on the page, because I want more people to see, what we've been enjoying from her for a minute.
Thank you.
God, one half of a couple of iterations of Thick and Juicy. A journey woman in looking at stuff for the interview today. I mean, I guess it's been about 7 years, since you started, and it pretty much all of the women that we talk about outside of the major federation, and a lot of the women that are there now, you've gotten in the ring and wrestled a lot of them. So tonight we have Willow Nightingale. Willow, thank you for coming to the Black Rasslin Podcast. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. It is a beautiful day outside, so that always helps improve my mood tremendously. So good day, and I'm glad to be chatting with you. So it's even better now.
Dope. You mentioned about mood. I was gonna get into this later, but I had seen Gosh, I guess I need to subscribe. IWTV. There's the life of Willow Nightingale, like a reality series, and I saw some people commenting about how maybe they were at home, and they were able to pluck down the money, dig into a little bit about what's going on with your life. But I was wondering for you, you're walking around with a camera, filming like life at home. Your mother's in it. You've got family members. Talk about, was it difficult to kind of open up and pull the curtain back and have people see what was going on behind closed doors?
So I think the thing that's really been beneficial about doing that is that I like to keep my presentation of myself as genuine and as authentic as can be. So it didn't feel like I necessarily had to hide anything, or I had to be like, this is a completely different person, you know? So there was a level of comfort in just kind of already letting people into what they already see. But I don't think it was until like I was really getting ready to send it back and it was like done being edited and everything that I was like, oh my God, people are going to see this. Like, this is so vulnerable. And for the most part, like, all the people who are going to sit down and watch it are already like fans of mine. It's not like people who don't like me are going to sit down and spend an hour with me, because then at the end of the day, they're a fan, right? So I wasn't necessarily worried about like criticism from people. But I guess when you become very used to being that person that's like the shining light for other people, and you're kind of like, look on the bright side, this, and that, it can be a little hard to sometimes let that guard down and be like, I'm a real human being who struggles, and I feel frustrated with my career, and this, and this, and these are my obstacles. And like, sometimes it's hard to kind of let that be very transparent. But I think that's also like the beauty of the human experience, right? We've got the highs and lows. The lows make the highs higher. So I just let it all out.
How long were you filming? What was that process? What was the time frame for that process?
So originally I had gotten the camera at the beginning of December of last year, of 2021. And then I had it for about 2 weeks or like a week. And then I got COVID. So there was like 2 weeks where I was really just like, I'm home, nothing's going on. So they extended my time. They gave me a little more time to really kind of get some exciting stuff down. And then when I had mailed back the GoPro to the editor, it kind of went missing in the mail. So I was immediately like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Like, is this my fault? The editor was like, no, but like, we have to figure something out. I was like, if I'll record everything on my phone. If I have to, I'll send it through Dropbox, like whatever I got to do. But IWTV was fortunate enough to get another GoPro to me. And then I think I recorded like February. So it was roughly like a month, beginning of February to the end of February. The only thing that really tripped me up about having to like redo it, because, you know, it's not like I can make December happen again. It was just kind of like, all right, here's a different month of my life now. The only thing that I really regretted was my father works a lot, and because of that, I don't necessarily get as much like face-to-face in-person time with him as I do like my mother and my sister and like all these other people in my family. So I know for a fact that in that first month I recorded him, we got cool segments together because I wanted him to be a part of it. And then the second month it like slipped my mind, and I didn't get my dad on camera at all. I felt so bad when we were watching it together. I was like, Dad, you're an important part of my life too. I'm not trying to hide you. I'm sorry. Like,
I love you. I promise. I promise.
Yeah, I was like, we talked about you. We mentioned you.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, but that's really like the big thing that I was like, whoops.
Word. Well, I mean, go ahead.
So you mentioned. Well, Cal mentioned 7 years in, and I know the state of women's wrestling has gone through probably the biggest change of my watching professional wrestling over the last like 7-8 years. And I guess it has to be some sort of motivation to see better opportunities and better showing for women in pro wrestling. What is like the change of the landscape of pro wrestling kind of with women meant to you, and what motivates you now?
I think what wrestling is now is a lot closer to what I always wanted it to be when I was a kid. Because the way that I see it is like a lot of the women who have made the so-called revolution happen grew up with a very similar like mindset and outlook as me. So we're sitting down, we're watching TV, we're seeing the Diva era, which is like nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with like women being on the cover of Playboy, that is super duper cool. That is really empowering for some people. But for me, that was never necessarily my inspiration. You know, I always like ass kickers. So like I saw what the dudes are doing and I was like, that's what I want to do. Like I want to get physical. Like that's what wrestling is. That's what draws me to it. So I think there's like this whole generation of my peers who kind of came up with that same thought process. And when we started training, it was like, no, we're actually going to wrestle. We're going to do this. Like, don't tell me what I can or can't do. And on the indies, like that really has been the case for so many years. Like I always consider people like Lufisto, Mercedes Martinez to be idols of mine. And they had been doing it long before everybody is now getting credit for it. So I just feel really fortunate that it kind of worked out that way, that like all these like-minded people started training at the same time. They were able to get the opportunities to do so. And they've been able to like voice that they want women's wrestling to be taken seriously.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's interesting seeing you recently in the trios match, that was on Rampage, because again, it was a lot of women that we've been following on both sides of the ring, and it was a dope moment to see. And again, mentioned it earlier, you faced a lot of these women, a lot of women that we see all the time. Talk about where you see yourself in that group currently, because you're in a we're going to start work. There's going to be a couple of questions we're going to get into, because you're in it feels like you're in a very interesting spot right now in regards to the groundswell, I think, of fan appreciation for you being who you are, the person that you are, and literally like being on AEW at a time where AEW owns Ring of Honor, where I know you're like, that's a destination for you. Talk about where you see yourself amongst that mix of women, at the time there's so many, factors going into getting in the ring.
What's really funny is I'll say this sometimes, and some people will get mad at me. Some people kind of understand where I'm coming from. Personally, it took me a very long time to admit the fact that I might be a good wrestler. Okay, like I'm very like imposter syndrome, where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't deserve this. How did I end up here? Right. So I can say that I believe I am a good wrestler. I think there are women who are absolutely great wrestlers, like technically sound, like there's not a hole in their game. Right. The thing that I think I excel the most at is I am an excellent performer. I'm able to kind of like emotionally, get my feelings across. I emote very well. So that is a very strong point for me. And because I am someone who is really, like I said before, I'm very focused on getting my authentic and genuine self out there. I'm a very unique person. So yes, I'm focusing on wrestling. Wrestling always comes first, like the in-ring. But I think I'm a very unique character from everybody else. So that helps me kind of stand out, which is what we're meant to do in this business. And I just want to help my dance partners, as I call them, my opponents. I want to help make them look good too, because they all have the same mission as I do. And all the women coming up now, I want to help them be as good as they can be. I even kind of like gave a hand at training over the past year or so, and would really like to help. Not just women, a bunch of different groups, as far as like Black kids, other people of color, queer kids, anyone who feels like they might not have been accepted in wrestling before. I want them to know, like, here, the reason I'm coaching is because I felt like maybe I didn't belong at wrestling at one point. And now I want it to be crystal clear that there is someone who has arms wide open, willing to accept you and teach you, as long as you're putting in the work. So the way I see myself is someone who's been really fortunate to have the ladies who paved the way kind of accept me with open arms, and now it's my job to help do that to new people coming in, and do good for myself as well.
Right. What's Willow the coach like? Is she, do you get in there and get stern, or are you still smiling while you're telling them to do push-ups and everything?
So I think like the first couple weeks I was very timid. because I'm a generally reserved person. It takes me a while to actually break out of my shell. So going back to the imposter syndrome, like that, on top of being like, I need to break out of my shell, it was kind of like, I don't know. Does that make any sense? Like, do you understand what I'm saying? So it took a little while to kind of like gauge, like, okay, I'm doing, people will listen to me, and the things that I'm saying are actually worthwhile listening to. And then once I got to that point, it was just kind of like, yes, I will encourage you. I will give you positive feedback because those are the things that you need to grow. But I will not give you a shortcut or an easy way out because that doesn't help anybody. So that's really my approach to training is like, if you are tired, you're going to have to keep pushing through, because when you're in the middle of a wrestling match, guess what? You get tired and you can't just say, ooh, referee, I need a break.
Yeah,
You know?
I need five
Exactly.
for a little bit. Yeah.
So there's like a level of mental toughness that really comes into play with that too. And I don't want people to like completely shrug that off.
Right.
So
one of my favorite things watching a Willow Nightingale match is one of my favorite moves in pro wrestling, period. I love to see people get pounced. It's one of my favorite things in ring because it's very, very violent, and it's very, which is an amazing contrast to what you present visually. It's two-part question. Who's your favorite pouncer? Who's the favorite person you've seen other than yourself do the pounce? And who do you like to pounce?
That's funny. That's funny.
So I think it's a little bit of like a split answer, because Keith Lee is absolutely like, I think, just a ball of muscle. He has like so much strength, tosses around people with like what looks like such little effort, right? So to watch him pounce people is really just like stifling. But I constantly get tagged in like Monty Brown stuff, and like I have to obviously give the homage to Monty Brown and the charisma, because that man is just like dripping in it. So both of them, for different reasons. I think like as far as impact, Keith Lee is the winner, but the extra little stank will go to Monty, you know.
Shout out to Stank.
Yeah.
The
stank is good.
And I think like my favorite pounce that I've ever done was to Yo-Ya, who he tags with Janai Kai, and I actually pounced them both in a match, but Yo-Ya like literally went like flying out, like he's like a little guy, and it was just, I don't know, it's really cool.
Talk about that feeling, because I know, I mean, it's one thing, you know, we mentioned charisma, you know, we talk about you and your personality just being so over the top. I mean, just walking into an arena as Willow Nightingale's got to be, you know, I imagine the rush of that is crazy, but the rush from like a reaction to a good pounce, it's got. I mean, what do you remember the first, like what that felt like when you got like that real first, like what was that like?
You know what's weird is I feel like a little bit less now, but for a long time when I wrestled, it kind of felt like I would go into this like fugue state where I would just kind of like be a different person, and then I'd black out, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm back to life. And it just felt like a weird memory. Like it wasn't me. I wasn't in the driver's seat. And then I was like, there's gotta be a way that I'm in a little bit more control. So a lot of times, like, I don't really let that stuff sink in. But over the past couple months, I've been like, there's a bunch of cool stuff happening, and life just like passes you by. And like the whole 7 years of my career so far, it's been like, I'm trying to get here, I'm trying to do this, I want to reach this goal, I want to do this goal. And last year I reached so many of my goals,
right?
And the whole time it was like, what's next? I never let it sink in. So it wasn't really until this year when I was like, you're living in this, like your goals are happening right now, this is your body of work, this is like the stories you're gonna tell when you're like old and like you have grandkids, maybe, I don't know, like this is the cool stuff,
right?
Just live in it. So really only the past couple months I've been like, in the ring, I've been like, oh, you feel that? You see these people? I make eye contact with you. Like, this is my real life. And it's wild. But the first time it ever happened, I don't even think it like hit me.
Yeah.
A lot of times it would be like, I'd do my match. I'd be like, I don't know how I feel about that. Maybe like, I think it went okay. I think it was good. And then I'd go on Twitter and then I'd be like, oh, people really liked it. I guess it went well.
I guess it's on us to start getting the pounce over to the AEW crowd. Anytime we see Willow on TV, hashtag pounce or something, we got to figure it out. Well, we've one of the things that we loved over here was the tag team pairing of Thick and Juicy. And we greatly appreciated that you kept the spirit of Thick and Juicy alive when Faye you left the business. And two-part question. One, any iteration are we going to be able? Are there any plans for a Thick and Juicy reunion anytime in the near future? And two, if you could pick any male partner to be like a Thick and Juicy 3.0. Brother Math can't be here, but he would suggest Big E. That's what he told me to tell you. He said it just made sense. It just made sense.
That is a very good recommendation. So because the first person who popped into my mind was actually Billy Dixon, who we've seen like on For the Culture. I've worked, FE's Big Gay Brunch. I've been friends with Billy pretty much the moment I met him. I was like, you're just a great person. I know recently, like I'd say within the past couple of days, he actually said that he was stepping away from wrestling, which is heartbreaking to me. But ultimately, I get it. You gotta be your own person and like take time away from wrestling. It can be real crazy. But he like embodies the spirit of what I believe Thick and Juicy to be, which is just very like confident, willing to inspire other people and give other people confidence. And, he's thick and juicy. So that would be my male candidate. But Big E is a very, very good choice.
Yeah.
Chances of there being a reunion, I mean, Faye says she's done.
Yeah.
So she manages us from time to time, me and Brooke. But if she did ever come back to the ring, I would demand a reunion.
There you go. Yeah, I think the fans would as well.
Yeah.
It's funny you guys mentioned Faye. Faye cussed us out for not including you.
That's right.
PRP fit like face to face cuss out, not like hey to click. No. She saw me and Brother Math in the street. She said, "Hey, y'all should have had my girl Willow on the list," and all we said was, "We sorry." You know what I'm saying? It's all we can say. It's all we can say. You know what I mean? We'll have some conversations, but I believe that will be rectified. I also saw Billy Dixon recently in Dallas during a death match, and he is a nut. He is a whole nut. He after the match, and I said this to him recently online after he talked about his last match is coming up, and I said, "Hey, bro, hey, do what you do, leave. You know what I mean? You don't owe wrestling nothing. Hey, I appreciate you, my guy. You was all kinds of bandaged up, getting into a car, laughing, leaving the venue. So I said, hey, man, you gave the game everything, you know what I mean, that need be.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Shout out to that guy.
Shouts out to Billy Dixon.
Shout out to Billy.
For real. There was something else I wanted. I did see, if I'm not mistaken, because you got a match coming up in June against, is it Mia Yim?
Yes.
This is the first time you've ever wrestled?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It's wild. I had been wanting to work for Prestige for a while now. So when we kind of were like, okay, cool, we can make this date work, we can make that date work. I was excited for it regardless. I didn't know who my opponent was until it got announced. So when everybody else found out, I looked at my phone. All right, open up Twitter, and I'm jumping up and down. I'm like, oh my god, it's happening! It's finally happening!
That's crazy.
Yeah, I've taken like a Mia Yim seminar before. Like I just so cool, but also like such a technically like sound wrestler. A great like all around package as a wrestler. So
Is,
got
is
my
it-
work cut out for me.
do you have? Was she? Is there a list? Do you have a list of people you haven't wrestled yet? And was she top of that list?
Yes. Yeah.
Who else is on that list?
So Billy Starks is actually like, I'm pretty sure she's still 17 years old. She's not even 18 yet. She was at the top of the list because I just have this feeling that like once she turns 18, she'll be gone. You know,
Right.
she's so good. So I was like, I gotta wrestle Billy, and luckily I am. That also was like another one that was like, thank you, universe, for listening.
Right.
I have these all written down because being a wrestler, I have a terrible memory, and right now I'm like, I can't think of them.
Right.
But yeah, Mia's at the top. Shaza was someone I wanted to wrestle in this weekend too. Shaza McKenzie. If there was ever a way for it to be possible for me to wrestle Sasha Banks or Bailey, those like they inspired me so much throughout my like earlier years training and stuff, still to this day now, but you know, definitely seeing them do their takeover match. I don't remember which takeover it was.
In Brooklyn, that's all.
That was Brooklyn.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure I had a knee injury at the time, and I was at home and just like frustrated, and just like seeing them like kill it is like, okay, gonna keep trucking through.
Right.
So they're like all-time favorites for me too.
100%.
So speaking of being frustrated, not being able to get in the ring, how's COVID for you?
So it was not actually like me having it wasn't the worst. I'm vaccinated, so I wasn't feeling like terrible. And it was actually after, again, I had accomplished a lot of my goals. So for me, it was really a time to sit and kind of like reflect on that, kind of let that sink in, and just kind of reevaluate like how I will approach things moving forward. So as opposed to like being like, oh, I have to miss this show, or I'm missing out on this, or missing out on that, it was really kind of like a moment for me to take inventory on the past year that I had and how I would be approaching this year. So I don't want to say it was a blessing in disguise, because honestly, I think the amount of like deaths we've seen as a result of COVID,
right.
How can it be a blessing, right?
Right.
But for me, I think the time that I caught it was pretty opportune.
It worked for you. That was life telling you to sit down. But you mentioned not wanting to call something a blessing in disguise, and I wanted to know, like, you're roughly about 3 years removed since you injured your neck, and I was before that happens, like, did you think like, because you're outside of it now, you're already on TV, you've done the Super Card of Honor, you've accomplished a lot of your goals. Are you surprised, like, when you were home injured with the neck, were you thinking, I don't know if this is going to happen for me anymore, or were you thinking that like what's happening now should have been happening a couple years earlier? Like, talk about that process where you're at now with all of that.
I mean, so every time you have to kind of take a minute back from wrestling, which is like, for me, there have been 3 major points in my career where I've had to take like a timeout. I had knee surgery when I was like 22 or 23. I had my neck surgery, and then there was like quarantine when everybody was like, at home, like the beginning of the pandemic. So those are like the 3 big times. And the first time I had an injury, it was really like, okay, I've trained to be a wrestler, and now I am a wrestler, and this is my identity, and I don't know who I am outside of wrestling anymore. So it kind of helped teach me balance in my first encounter. But then when I had the neck injury, obviously the stakes are a little bit higher. It's like my mother's worst fear coming to life, really, because even when I started, she'd always be like, what if you break your neck? What if you like crazy? I was like, that's not gonna happen. And then it
happened. Yeah.
So there were questions of if it would even be possible for me to come back to wrestling, and even like it was technically possible? Would it be smart to do that? But through all of that, every time I had like a doubt or a question about it, there was like this very small voice at the back of my head that was like, you have to just keep going, right? Like, this isn't it. Like, whatever I've done so far has been pretty cool, but I know I'm not done with wrestling. Like, there was just, for whatever reason, some faith that I had. I don't even necessarily know if it was in myself. Like, I'm not somebody who really like believes like there's a destiny for us. But I just felt like it would be so unlike me to let some sort of outside factor have the final say in my passion. So it was like, if I ever decide, or I mean, I'm sure at some point it'll happen, but when I decide I want to step away from wrestling, I want it to be on my terms, and I want it to be my own personal choice. So I was very inspired to keep moving forward and just keep demanding more for myself. A good friend of mine had been through a very similar surgery, so he kept me inspired throughout the whole time. I was like, if Brandon can do it, I could do it.
Right.
So I don't even think he knows that I said that all the time, but I said that to myself all the time. I was like, if Brandon can do it, I can do it. So he helped me without even knowing it.
Shout out to Brandon.
Yeah, shout out to Brandon Watts of Milk Chocolate.
I love it. Willow, we mentioned the Mia match. You know, I'm always waiting to see when I'm going to be able to see Willow on TV soon. But what else is going on with you? You know, do you have any more bookings that you can announce? Anything else going on you can talk about?
So this weekend I have Wrestlers Lab in New Jersey, and I have a Mission Pro in Texas. Let's see. I have a friend getting married this month. So it's like, oh, I can breathe for the weekend.
Right,
I can cut loose instead of work. I have another match with Prestige versus Taya Valkyrie. I'm wrestling for Pro Wrestling Grind in Massachusetts. Beyond Wrestling is really a home for me. So more often than not, if you see a Beyond Wrestling show, I'm probably going to be on it. Same thing for Women's Wrestling Revolution. That's their like sister promotion. Off the top of my head, that's really what my schedule is going to be looking like moving forward. And NYWC is also a home. That's where I learned how to wrestle. I coach there about once a week or so. So yeah, I don't know. Check out my Twitter, people.
So you mentioned you're killing the indies. You're all over the place, and your reception is getting bigger. Of course, that's tied to you being seen on national TV on a more repeat basis. My question here is, what's the biggest thing that you had to learn moving from, like, you know what I mean, camera, television, wrestling, you know, moving into that format? Like, what's different there? What did they say? Hey, make sure you do A, B, and C.
I think the biggest thing for me is I have to just let myself breathe, because wrestling is wrestling. No matter who I'm wrestling, where I am wrestling, what ring it is, like who's watching it, how many people are watching it, I know how to do it. It doesn't change completely drastically just because I'm wrestling for this company versus this company. I've been trained to do it. I know what I'm doing. But you know, sometimes the butterflies creep in, they start fluttering a little too hard, and then I'm just like, oh, gotta do this, gotta do that. And it's like, no, take your time. You've got a beautiful face. Let people see your face. What do you want to rush for? You know, so that's that's really the big thing for me, is just kind of being like, no. And again, enjoy the moment you're in. Let the moment sit. You know, I'm only going to be doing this for a finite amount of time in my life. Nobody can wrestle forever, so enjoy it while I'm here. That's been like the gotta
yourself, yeah.
Yeah, I know that like international wrestling is one of the goals that you want to get into beyond just like Canada. right?
Oh, yeah.
What happens if you get that big call from one of these companies that are American based,
Um,
and it's gonna kind of put a monkey wrench in those works?
then I guess I don't know.
Uh,
We will cross that bridge when we get there.
yeah, yeah. If whatever makes sense, I guess, you know.
Exactly. My goals are so big, just because I have in the past not been thought I'd be able to accomplish everything, and I've managed to do a lot of it, right? Like I've been saying. So I've just kind of recently been like, you know what? Let's get real crazy with our goals, because why am I going to sell myself short if I can do it at some point? I don't want to put a timeline on anything. So everything will have its time and its place. I have faith in that. Again, I don't know. I don't believe in a destiny, but I
Right.
believe in myself. So I know that I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Well, again, if it feels like, again, I don't want to put anything out in the air at all, but it feels like the way that the journey is going, if something's gonna happen for Willow, like it feels like now, perfect time, just throw her out there, throw her in all the matches. Like again, that's why I think when Math mentioned Big E, it just made sense because your personalities are so similar. And I mean, again, I don't know if you're at, like, if you feel like you're at that point where Big E was before they really started that most recent singles push, but like, it feels like you could step into that role if they gave you the rock and told you to move with it.
Fingers crossed,
Yeah. Anything, again, as long as you go out there, like you said, just chill and do what you're there to do. That's what do you got? I've been looking at this keyboard behind you. What do you get into outside of wrestling? What's your life outside of the ring?
So honestly, a lot of my time outside of wrestling is still somehow dedicated to wrestling. So one of the things that I do a lot in my free time is sew, and I sew my gear. So I'm actually doing that right now. So I've got a new set that I'm working on. Other wrestling stuff, training, going to the gym, watching wrestling. My boyfriend's a wrestler, so even a lot of times our conversations are about wrestling. But outside of that, I like to I kind of got into bouldering recently, which is like rock climbing on the walls.
I saw your videos on the Instagram, yeah.
So that's fun. Very humbling because it's challenging. You fall on your butt a lot, but that's part of the fun. I do like music a lot, which I think most people do. I played tenor sax like through elementary school and high school, but like after high school, I completely stopped playing saxophone. From time to time, I'll play guitar, which was something, again, I was a lot more interested in when I was younger. Piano is not for me. It's fun to play around. Like I know like one song based on muscle memory from like watching a YouTube video on how to play it. But other than that, I can do a scale. One scale, yeah.
What song did you memorize from?
It's Samson by Regina Spektor. It's like a sad little ballad, soft and sweet.
I'm gonna have to pull it up. I'm gonna drop it in the description just so at some point you need to play it using your muscle memory, put it online, and people can enjoy that.
Maybe one day.
You mentioned sewing. Do you ever look at what Bianca's going like? Girl, I could out sew you. Watch what I'm putting into. Like a sewing man.
I do. I think she does a great job with her gear. Generally, I try in my life compare my skills to other people like that, because then I'm just like, man, how do they do this? Why can't I do that?
Yeah, you feel bad.
So I think she's great. I could be great. We could both be great, and not try to get too competitive about it.
100%. Willow, I think that's about our time for tonight. Before we get out of here, though, where can people find Willow Nightingale on social media, on the internet? Where can they find you?
So Twitter and Instagram are really the best places to follow me, because that's where I update everything. Handle for that is at Willow Wrestles. If there are any numbers attached to that, it is an imposter. So Willow Wrestles, that's it. One word, the two words smushed together. I have a TikTok. I've got if you go to willownightingale.com, you can get some merch and stuff from there. Yeah, that's what I do on the internet.
Well, thank you very much for coming through. Really it's been fun talking to you. It's been fun watching you in the ring over the years, but it's been great to open up and have this conversation with you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I've had a great time.
No problem. No problem. For Willow and fam, my name is Cal again. Patreon.com/Black Rasslin, YouTube.com/Black Rasslin. Subscribe. Pay a little bit of dollars. You can see interviews like this before they go to the public. So why wouldn't you pay? Why wouldn't you pay? We'll check y'all out every Thursday, 8:35 ish on YouTube. We'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.